Digital entrepreneurs have one big thing in common: a lack of socialization. We're usually in our own homes behind our computer screens working for hours on end, and we don't see other people. And for introverts, that might be amazing. And for extroverts, that can be really draining, but also lead to a lack of productivity because if you have to be around people in order to get things done and you simply don't have access to that, it can be a real problem. And for introverts, it's important to make sure we're working with those coworkers and having those conversations without having to be physically present with people or taking a lot of our time and effort and draining our social battery to make sure we are dealing with the people that we need to. So creating virtual workspaces is the best of both worlds for introverts and for extroverts to make sure we have access to what we need, when we need it, how we need it. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how we can be building those virtual workspaces so that you only have to deal with people when you need to, or you get to deal with people when you need to. Today's video is in part sponsored by Go Brunch. We're going to talk about them in just a little bit, but you want to make sure that as you are deciding how to build out your virtual workspace, you keep a couple of things in mind. Now, a virtual workspace is going to be a digital location where you can be meeting with people. Sometimes this is on camera, sometimes it's off camera, sometimes it's microphone, and sometimes it's just chat. But having a digital workspace, a virtual meeting place where everyone on your team or people that you want to be around when you're working can come together to have those conversations, be it on camera, off camera, just microphone, or inside of the chat, so that we can feel that accountability toward other people. I'm actually building some of these virtual workspaces in my author life so that authors can come together to write at the same time. So doing their own work in their own space, but having that accountability of other people doing it at the same time to push them into doing a little bit more productive work. I'm also creating digital workshops and different events so that people can come together and collaborate and have discussions on the projects we're working on or the state of the industry. And this is going to allow us to foster a deeper community, make sure we have those social connections in the way that we need to, and have a space that we can all go to have these meetings without having to be in person or around people or wasting time traveling or just checking in when we need to so that we're not wasting time. So virtual workspace is going to give us the freedom and the flexibility to pop into a digitally designed place that's not just like a Zoom meeting. You can, of course, jump on a Zoom meeting, but it's not pretty. It doesn't foster a very conducive environment to having the conversations that you're having. We want to make sure it's a little bit more stylized than that and fits with the business that we are going to be running. So creating a digital virtual workspace allows you to come and do your work with other people if you need it and to communicate when you need it. And when creating these digital workspaces, it is important to make sure you're bringing in people that are going to work well together. Not everybody is going to do well in the same space. Now, of course, if you have a business with a team, you have to have your team members in that, and hopefully you've done your research, you've done the work in advance to make sure you have people on your team that work well together. But if you are just trying to create a co-working space where anybody in a certain genre or niche or part of your industry can come to have these collaborations or just to have that socialization, you want to make sure that you're being smart about how you do this. For the most part, we don't want to have just open rooms that anybody can come into because that could lead to arguments, that could lead to problems, wasted time, that can lead to a community that does not foster growth or happiness or peace. So we want to make sure that as we're allowing people into our virtual spaces, we are very, very smart about who we're bringing in. So you want to make sure that you are paying attention to how people work and how people socialize. If you're creating a workspace where people can come and do a project together, you do not necessarily want somebody who's going to sit on camera and chat the entire time and distract everybody else. If you are creating a space where you're bringing people in to have conversations and to bounce ideas and to help each other to grow, then you do want people who are going to be active on camera or on microphone to discuss things and to have those conversations. If you're bringing people who don't want to talk into a room that is designed for those conversations, that's going to feel like someone's either ignoring or doesn't want to be a part of it. You're also going to feel like that person is being overridden by the people who are a little bit more chatty. So you're looking for people who are going to work well together. You want to bring in people that you also work well with. Just because you are creating these virtual spaces does not mean you want to put yourself out while you're doing it. Creating a virtual workspace is going to be a little bit of work, especially if you're the one who is overseeing everything. So make sure you're bringing in people that you like. So for example, I mentioned that I am going to be doing this in my author life, and I'm going to be bringing in authors who want to co-write and work together. So I am only inviting people that I know work at a similar pace as me, who have conversations a similar way as me, because I want us to all be able to come together in the same way. So when we have events that are about having conversations and asking what's going on in the industry and doing things to build each other up, I want people who are going to actively participate. People who are actually doing the work inside of their own businesses, and they are going to be able to bring their ideas and experiences to then have a collective conversation to decide what could potentially help us moving forward and what things we can do in our work and in our marketing to make things work a little bit easier for us on social media. Likewise, when I am doing my writing rooms, I am bringing in people who are going to sit there and check in with each other at certain time periods, so that we're going to sit and quietly do our own work, but then every half hour or every 15 minutes, we're going to come back into the conversation and check in with each other. And this could be on camera, this could be microphone, this could be in chat, and that's going to depend on the people that I bring in. I am keeping my groups small. I want people that I trust, people I have confidence in, and people that I know are going to work together as a unit. So that might mean I have one group here and another group over here, and I do things at different times with different types of people to make sure everybody is getting what they need and fostering that community growth. So you want to make sure that you are actively checking to make sure everybody's working well together and nothing is kind of sticking out from the group. Maybe if that is happening, you want to start secondary groups to make sure everybody is covered, but they are working well together. So as you are doing this, you are going to make sure you've done your due diligence and you've done your research on the people who are going to be in these groups and making sure you're pretty certain that these groups are going to work well together. From there, you're going to take a couple of times to check it and just kind of watch how people interact, maybe check in with people behind the scenes and see how they feel about it to make sure you are creating a community that is working for the community you have invited in there. And then from there, you have the ability to grow, or you have the ability to add people into your groups. You have the ability to split those groups off. You have the ability to create different individual non-connected groups to make sure that you are constantly growing and changing and getting what you need as a digital entrepreneur, but also what you are doing for the people who you've brought in to make sure they're growing too. And I highly recommend, as you are creating these groups, you are scheduling specific times, especially in the beginning. If you're trying to bring people into a co-working space that you've created in the virtual landscape, you want to make sure that people are going to be there. So if you just create a room and it's open 24/7, that oftentimes means people are going to be there alone. And we don't want to do that. We don't want people to have the experience of coming into a co-working space and then still being on their own. That's going to feel like a task. It's going to feel like a chore. It's going to feel like if someone shows up, then they have to carry the conversation. So you want to make sure when you're starting off, you're scheduling specific times. And that can be a half-hour block. It can be an hour block. It can be whatever you need it to be. But I do recommend you have it on some type of schedule. Train people to show up at the same time every single week to make sure they're involved in this community. So if it's a conversational community where you're bouncing ideas and you're going through things, you're going to pick a time like every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And during that time, people will show up. And if they show up, they get access. And if they don't show up, then they've missed it. As people start to become more reliable with showing up and engaging, then you can expand those times. You can have breakout rooms. You can potentially build it up if you have a very large community. If you are actively working on building a large community and bring them into your virtual space, then maybe you can have a 24/7 room, but you can really lock down what's going to work when, how things are going to happen, so that you're facilitating community growth. You do not want people to be there on their own. You do not want one or two people to be there on their own so that they feel like they have to entertain each other and lead those conversations. So make sure you have a strong group of people that will show up and then schedule those times and build out from there. This can be a several month process or even over a year if you are slowly building up what you are doing. But start small, start with a small group with a small period of time and build from there as people become more reliable and as you understand how these things are going to function so you can facilitate what you actually want to get out of these rooms. Now, when it comes to designing these rooms, you want to make sure that it's going to facilitate the conversation and the way that people want to interact with each other. So there are lots of ways that you can be doing this. You can do it on a live stream, you can do it on a Zoom call, you can do it in an audio only room, but having the ability to choose how people want to interact with the people who are currently in those spaces is really a benefit to how you're going to grow these different communities. So you want to be looking for a program that's going to allow you to do video if you want, or audio if you want, or just chat if you want, and having the ability to then make sure that it is aesthetically pleasing, because anybody can jump on a Zoom call and we have those little boxes everywhere. and you get either people on camera not looking super happy, or you're getting just an icon or maybe a profile picture. It's just not very office-like. It's not very business-like. It's not very high-end. It does definitely feel like the lowest way that we can be getting into those rooms and into those conversations. So if you can level it up with customized branding, that is going to help you out. Now, there is a new program that I have actually worked with for today's video. They are called Go Brunch, and they allow you to have aesthetically pleasing and brand-specific workspaces for you to create what actually feels like a big corporate event. So if you are a business and you're bringing people in, it can feel like they're sitting in an office space having conversations. It can feel like they are out to coffee at a cafe and you're just having these conversations with people. It can even feel as high scale as some big corporate event where everybody's sitting in chairs and looking at a big screen and listening to presenters. There's lots of different ways you can design those rooms. And then you can have people inside of their cameras, either on or off camera. They can mute and unmute that mic, or they can talk inside of the chat box, so everybody can participate in the way that they are prepared to participate. You can, of course, as you're designing it, require them to be on camera or to be on microphone or to be in the chat or whatever you want. But because they have a bunch of different types of rooms that you can stylize to match whatever kind of content you're creating or whatever type of community you are creating, because you have the ability to design this, it feels more conducive to having beneficial conversations. It feels more intimate. It feels more planned. It feels more high end. It feels like they paid to get into a big event, a big convention, a big thought mastermind that is going to allow them to connect with the right people in the right spaces, even if you're bringing them into this totally for free. So designing a space that makes it feel like they have gone into some big industry event really elevates not only the conversations and the ideas that come from it, but the community that you are forming. And because it looks higher end, they're more likely to hang out with you than with other people. So being able to create something that's aesthetic, whether it's just your branding or the layouts or how you're doing it or the features and functionalities that you're giving them, you want to make sure you're looking for something that's going to work for the community that you are creating. And that allows you to do some really cool things to build up that conversation within your community. Inside of your virtual workspaces, you want to make sure you're facilitating productive conversation. So you are giving them tasks, you're giving them overview and oversight, you are guiding the process of the conversation. You are effectively the host or hostess of the event that you are going to be holding. And so you want to make sure you're giving people a very clear direction for the conversation. If you just drop 10 people in a room and say, okay, let's talk about the industry, you're probably not going to have as much productivity inside of those conversations than if you said, okay, what is everybody seeing right now inside of the industry? Can you everybody take a turn to say one thing we're noticing, and then we could talk about how to fix it? Or you can come into the conversation saying, okay, we need to change how we're doing our TikTok marketing. What are you seeing inside of your TikTok as you're scrolling that we could potentially adapt for how we're doing things? You could even have this conversation start off by saying, what productive things did you do this week inside of your business? Shout yourself out. This is a moment for you to talk about something you're proud of that you did this week. And then you can continue those conversations as you are discussing it with the group and lead the conversation. If there's time for a transition, that's on you. You need to be the one leading these conversations. And so going into these virtual work times, it is highly to your advantage to have just a little bullet point list somewhere that you can refer to if the conversation kind of gets quiet, or if you're not sure how to get from one place to the other, or if there's specific topics that you do need to cover. Having those written down somewhere that you can just kind of check off as you go facilitates really good, strong conversation. You are the host or the hostess of the conversation that you are having inside of that room, and making sure you have a plan and strategy is what's going to keep people coming back. Now, if you have really good conversation, if things are happening, if they're getting really deep into whatever you're talking about, you don't have to go through your entire list. Just having that there, if needed, is incredibly helpful to make sure we're facilitating that conversation, we're pushing it forward. We want to be pushing the needle with these virtual workspaces, whether it is silent by yourself work and we're just checking in and being accountable to each other, or you are going to be doing this as some type of idea bouncing and some type of content creation type conversation. You want to make sure that you are making sure the needle is moving slightly for everybody involved. It doesn't have to be a big jump. It doesn't have to be going from point A all the way to point B, but we gotta be on that journey. People should feel when they leave these virtual workspaces, be it 15 minutes, an hour, several hours, they should feel like they have made some step forward. a little bit of progress in their business, in their brand, in their life, with their work, or with a team effort. We have to feel like it was a productive use of our time. Because if we come to these virtual workspaces and we feel like we wasted an hour and we didn't get our work done, we're going to stop coming to them. So you want to make sure that as you are creating these spaces, everybody's walking away feeling like something good came from it. But we need to make sure that it's worthwhile for the people who are attending. So there has to be an element of accountability when it comes to leaving these rooms. So you want to make sure that people are not having really good productive conversations, but walking away and not taking the next steps or forgetting what they talked about and feeling like it was fine for socialization, but didn't really do too much. So giving them the opportunity to specifically say or to write down what they accomplished during that time shows them, oh, this was actually a good use of my time. I did something that helped me. This is a good space for me to be in. So you need some level of accountability. You can do this in a lot of different ways. You can have them email in after. You can have them put it in the chat box what they accomplished or what their one big takeaway from the conversation was. You want some level of accountability before people check out of that virtual workroom to make sure that everybody knows, okay, they did something productive. They got something accomplished. And the benefit is that they can also cheer that person on. So let's go back to my author version that we were talking about a little bit earlier. If I brought a bunch of authors in to write their novels, before leaving the room, I would ask them to say, okay, what did you accomplish in your writing? And that could be a word count. That could be how much you got done. That could be what really cool scene did you just write? What thing did you add into your novel that you're really proud of? It doesn't have to be how much work did you do, but what's something that you did that you're excited about, that you feel accomplished over, or that you think you did really, really well. If I brought in entrepreneurs and we were all planning our next course together, I might say, okay, what was one good takeaway that you created while you were here? Or how long did you spend getting this one section done before you were able to move on to the next? Sometimes it really can be not how much time did you spend on this, but how quickly did you get this thing done because you had people being accountable to. You want to make sure there's some level of accountability and that they check in publicly so that everybody knows, okay, people are getting work done. I'm getting work done. This is a productive space. This is helping me. This is helping them. And it helps because we can then say, oh, you accomplished this? That's fantastic. Go have a great rest of your day, but feel good about doing this thing. We are so happy that you were able to do that while you were here. Having that level of accountability builds everybody up, because if I join a room and maybe it's not my most productive day, but I see people pinging in the chat box that they're doing this and they're doing that and they're doing that, that's going to inspire me and encourage me to do a little bit more inside of what I'm doing so that I can also feel accomplished. Even if it's not to be bragging about, oh, I got this really cool thing done. It means that I am in a space where everybody's doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing, and that kind of elevates the need for me to put that effort in. Having a virtual workspace really is about kind of getting people to do a little bit more because of that social ramification. Other people are doing it. I have to do it too. I got to keep up with them. And oftentimes that can help us to be more productive. So checking in on that accountability can definitely be a game changer for these virtual spaces. And then it all boils down to your scheduling of this. You want to make sure this is a consistent workspace for people. We talked earlier about starting small and building up, but you need to decide how you're going to eventually run this. Do you want it to be a monthly thing? Do you want it to be a weekly thing? How are you going to be maintaining this so that you do not get burned out overseeing things, but you also get all the benefits of having those people here and building up that community? The more you schedule it, the better it's going to be for people. Because if you train them on the first of every month, we are having a 2-hour work evening. We're all coming together. We're getting our scheduling done and we're going to start work on our projects for the month. People are going to start showing up month after month after month. If you are doing something on maybe like a Monday morning, that is how people are going to start their week off. So you want to pick a time and you really want to schedule that in, and then you want to talk about it. If you are doing it where more people are going to be joining you can talk about it publicly. If you are doing it within your enclosed group of people or maybe within your team, you're going to talk about it again and again and again. And remind people, here's what we're doing, here's how we're doing it. If you have a project that you know you're going to struggle on doing by yourself, save it for the group conversation. If you have something where you need to have these conversations with others or you need to bounce ideas, save it for this meeting and make sure you're really drilling down on that. And the more you do it, the more you're going to be able to build it out, but the more you'll be able to refine it as well. So just because you start something doesn't mean that's how it always has to go. The first 6 or 7 meetings that you have might be learning how each other works. And by the time you get to your 8th meeting, you may have a really good refined schedule of this is our intro time, this is our chat about what we've accomplished this week time, this is our laying out plans and how we're going to do it, these are our breakout sessions where people are going to their individual rooms to work in teams, and then this is the time we're coming back together to talk about what we just did and put all those pieces together, and then we're going to have our accountability time at the end. Creating and refining that schedule within the conversation that you're having in these virtual meetings can be incredibly helpful. And you're only going to be able to refine that with time and with experience. So the more you work with that specific group, the more you're going to be able to refine it for that specific group's needs. And what you've learned to refine for this group may not work as well for this group. And so the more you do it, the more you're going to be able to connect with that particular group, the particular community that you've created, and facilitate that conversation and that growth within each individualized group. And of course, the more you do it, the more you're able to pull in outsiders, the more you're able to have longer groups or 24/7 groups, the more you're able to have people who are going to help you to kind of oversee it. You can, even if you're pulling in a lot of different people. So back to my author example, if I'm allowing a lot of authors that maybe I don't know to come in, I can have people assigned to different times throughout the week to have that kind of oversight of the group. So you want to make sure as you're creating these virtual spaces, you are doing this to facilitate your needs, the things that you need. I know a lot of people who are going to jump in to do it just to be nice for other people. I do that a lot. I put myself out so often to create spaces for others. You want to make sure with this, because it does come with a level of oversight and a little bit of a level of work, that you are doing what works for you and meets your needs first. Once you have figured out what's going to meet your needs and get you to where you need to go, and then you've had some time and experience to really refine this, then you can open it up to others. Then you can be that group inclusive mindset where you're bringing in more people and you're not just doing it to facilitate what you need, but to facilitate what a bunch of people are going to need. So you want to make sure at the start of this, it's about you and what you need, and then you bring in a tight group to do this and refine it from there and grow it from there and then build it out. It's a process, but it is such a valuable process to help you to be more productive, to get the socialization you need, to find a community, to have conversations and to bounce ideas and to get people to check in with you. It is so incredibly valuable for you to grow inside of your space, whatever that space happens to be. So be very judicial, be very picky about it at first, and then grow from there. If you have questions on working in virtual workspaces, go ahead and drop it down below. And if you have some tips and tricks on virtual workspaces that you've created or how you work with your small groups, drop those in the comments so that we can all grow together. We want to make sure that we are helping you to level up as entrepreneurs to make this your most profitable year ever with the least amount of stress and overwhelm and time commitment as you're creating your content, so you can live your best life while also living out your entrepreneurial dreams. We'll see you in the upcoming episodes.